Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today I will analyze the case of Nikki Bamberg. First I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Allison Nicole Bamberg was born on May 24, 1979 in Bacon County, Georgia. She went by the name Nikki. She was raised by her father, Gary Orvin, and her mother, Rita Orvin. Nikki married, had a son named Gabriel, and divorced. She worked at a Walmart store. This is where, in December 2002, she met a former correctional officer named Damon James Bryce Bamberg, and they became romantically involved. Damon was also divorced. He had been married to a woman named Andrea, but she left him after he allegedly threatened her with a machete. He and his mother, Sonia Lou Bamberg, lived in her house in Mount Vernon, Georgia. People in the community noticed that Damon and Sonia had an extremely close relationship, so close it was described as disturbing, unnatural, and nauseating. Nikki and Damon married, and Damon adopted Nikki's son, Gabriel. Later, the couple had a son together named Elijah. The family lived in Sonia's house under living arrangements that were tense and worrisome. Sonia had a lot of control over Damon, and the significant boundary issues in the mother-son relationship made Nikki feel uncomfortable. Another difficulty for Nikki was Damon's violent behavior. Allegedly, he threatened Nikki and once threw a knife in the ground at her feet. Nikki left Damon after 2 years of marriage. Damon was ordered to pay child support, which made him exceptionally unhappy, especially considering how he was unemployed at the time. Nikki rented an apartment in Hazelhurst, Georgia, which is about 25 miles south of Mount Vernon. She attended a local community college where she was studying to be a pharmacy technician. On January 14, 2008, Nikki's divorce was finalized. However, if she believed she was finally free of Damon, she was mistaken. Before moving to the timeline of the crime, let's hear a word from today's sponsor, Factor. Living an active, healthy lifestyle isn't always easy, and cooking on top of everything else can feel overwhelming. Factor makes it simple with flavor-first, chef-crafted meals that are ready in just 2 minutes. No preparation, no cleanup, and no stress. Factor features double the seafood and protein options compared to last year and has over 100 rotating weekly options, including meals, salads, breakfasts, and shakes. They focus on nutrient-dense foods that support lasting energy, strength, and overall wellness. Meals are free from refined seed oils, sugars, artificial colors, and sweeteners. Fuel your body with smart, balanced nutrition. Each meal is designed to provide the perfect mix of carbohydrates, healthy fats, and protein, plus at least 2 vegetables per meal for added nutrient density. After a long day of researching, analyzing, and recording, Factor is my go-to solution to save time, avoid cooking fatigue, and stick to my goals with nutritious, restaurant-quality meals. Head to Factor75.com or click the link below and use code DrGrandeFB50 to get 50% off plus free breakfast for 1 year. That's code DrGrandeFB50 at Factor75.com. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. On January 18, 2008, just 4 days after the divorce finalized, Nikki's father, Gary Orvin, called 911 at 6:05 p.m. and said that Nikki just called him while she was driving. She indicated that her rear window had been cracked and she thought someone was shooting at her. At this point, Nikki stopped talking. Gary could hear a bumping sound consistent with the phone hitting something. Nikki did not supply Gary with her location during the call. The police figured out that Nikki was probably on Highway 221 driving toward her apartment in Hazelhurst. After a brief search, they found her silver Chevrolet Malibu at a natural gas substation off the highway in Jeff Davis County. Nikki was in the driver's seat with her left foot out of the driver's door. She was slumped over and still clutching her cell phone in her right hand. Nikki had been shot once in the head and once in the neck with a firearm chambered in .45 ACP. Spent cases matching this caliber were found in a few places, including in her vehicle, next to her vehicle, and 0.4 miles away on Highway 221. It appeared as though someone shot her vehicle as she was driving on the highway. Nikki then pulled over at the natural gas substation, perhaps believing it was an occupied structure. At this point, the assailant walked up to her vehicle and shot her twice. A footprint was found just outside Nikki's car. At 6:20 p.m., just 15 minutes after the 911 call, Nikki's ex-husband Damon Bamberg and his mother Sonia arrived at the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office. Montgomery County is to the north of Jeff Davis County. Damon told the police that he wanted to file a complaint against Nikki. Here's the story that Damon supplied. At about 6 p.m., he and his mother Sonia met Nikki at a convenience store in the town of Uvalde. Nikki dropped off her two sons for visitation in her Chevrolet Malibu. Damon and Sonia were in a 1972 Chevrolet Chevelle with a distinctive skull and crossbones plate on the front bumper. During the drop-off, Damon and Nikki engaged in an argument over the boy's medication. Somehow, Nikki injured Damon's hand while giving him the medication. Damon entered the convenience store to get ice to treat his hand. After this, Damon and his mother Sonia drove straight to the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office to report the assault. As this was happening, Nikki drove in the opposite direction, toward Hazelhurst. Again, this is in Jeff Davis County. Despite Damon's story, the police believe that he and his mother, Sonia, were involved in Nikki's death. Investigators spoke to a motorist who saw something of interest while driving south on Highway 221. Between 6:08 and 6:10 p.m., the motorist noticed a Chevrolet Chevelle with a skull and crossbones front plate traveling north on the highway. The vehicle was moving at least 80 to 90 miles per hour. There were two adults in the front seat. The motorist then passed the natural gas substation where Nikki's body was found a few minutes later and saw a vehicle with its dome light activated. There was a leg sticking out of the open driver's door. The motorist assumed the driver was talking on the phone. With this information, the police were able to develop a theory of the crime. Nikki and Damon engaged in an argument at the convenience store. Nikki drove away at 6:01 p.m. At 6:03 p.m., Damon and Sonia left the convenience store and chased Nikki. They did this with Gabriel and Elijah in the back seat of the Chevelle. Damon and Sonia caught up with Nikki, shot her to death, and then drove north on Highway 221 at 90 miles per hour to the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office. This is how they were able to arrive by 6:20 p.m. As the investigation continued, the police learned that Sonia's other son, Mark, owned a high-point .45 caliber pistol. He had been given this pistol in exchange for doing repair work on a vehicle. Mark told the police that Damon and Sonia visited his house on the day of Nikki's death. Later, he discovered that his .45 caliber pistol was missing from his pickup truck. This same pistol had been fired into a tree on the property of a family friend named James Fowler. The police retrieved the bullet from the tree and were able to match it to the bullets that killed Nikki. Mark's gun was the weapon used in the shooting. The police determined that Mark had no involvement in the murder. Rather, Damon and Sonia were responsible. They took Mark's gun and used it to murder Nikki. On February 12, 2008, Damon and Sonia were indicted for murder, aggravated assault, possession of a firearm during the commission of a crime, and criminal damage to property. While Sonia was in jail, she became friends with an inmate named Burtis Taylor. Sonia drew a map and told Burtis to retrieve pistol components, magazines, and cartridges from a chicken pen behind her house in Mount Vernon. She wanted Burtis to conceal these items on another person's property, so this person would be blamed for the murder. The police searched behind Sonia's house and found gun parts consistent with a high-point .45 caliber pistol. They also found several magazines and a box of cartridges. On August 31, 2009, the trial for Damon and Sonia started. On September 3 of that year, they were convicted of all charges. The jury took 30 minutes to make their decision. It's not clear what they were doing for the other 29 minutes. Damon and Sonia were each sentenced to a term of life in prison and a term of 30 years to be served consecutively. Now moving to my analysis. There really isn't any doubt that Damon and Sonia were guilty of murder. Here are a few examples of the inculpatory factors. Damon had a history of violence toward both his first wife, Andrea, and his second wife, Nikki. He had a powerful motive to kill Nikki in the form of evading child support and gaining custody of his sons. Sonia made it pretty clear that she was interested in raising Nikki's sons. On one occasion, she allegedly said to Nikki, in front of a friend, "I will see you dead before I let you have those boys." The family friend, James Fowler, said that Sonia approached him in October 2007 and asked if he could kill Nikki for $25,000. James believed that Sonia was simply angry. On November 8, 2007, Sonia took out a $50,000 life insurance policy on Nikki with a $150,000 rider for accidental death. Sonia was the beneficiary of this policy. In Sonia's house, the police found a calendar on her refrigerator. The day of the murder, Friday, January 2008, was marked with a frowny face and the words, "Hell begins." On the day of the murder, Nikki had met Damon and Sonia at a convenience store. Damon claimed that his hand was injured and entered the store to get ice, as if he was trying to establish an alibi. He wanted to be captured on video surveillance. Nikki left the convenience store at 6:01 p.m. 2 minutes later, Damon and Sonia left. Prior to leaving, Sonia told Gabriel and Elijah, who were in the back seat of the Chevelle, that they were going to play a pirate game. She had them put on blindfolds and told them not to worry about any noises they might hear. It was just part of the game. Damon and Sonia had enough time to chase Nikki down and kill her and get to the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office by 6:20 p.m. The gun used in the murder had been stolen from Damon's brother, and the footprint found next to Nikki's vehicle was similar to boots that Damon was wearing. Damon and Sonia did not really put up much of a defense at trial. The evidence against them was overwhelming. This brings me to the question, what do I think happened in this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. Damon and his mother Sonia appeared to have severe boundary problems in their relationship. When Damon was married to his first wife, Andrea, they lived in his mother's house. Andrea said that Sonia was bossy and Damon followed her orders. Sonia would regularly walk around her house in her underwear and would enter the bathroom when Damon was taking a shower. At night, Damon slept in his mother's bed, not with Andrea. As I mentioned, Andrea left Damon after he allegedly threatened her with a machete. Damon married Nikki. After Damon separated from Nikki, he went online and met a woman named April. She stated that the first time she met Damon in person, his mother Sonia was there. One time, April walked into a room and noticed Damon and Sonia suddenly separating, as if they had been caught doing something inappropriate. The family friend, James Fowler, said that he saw Damon and Sonia open-mouth kissing. When Damon and Sonia were in jail, they would send notes back and forth. Sonia would write things like, "Soon you will be in my arms again, and I will give you relief. Soon we will be able to service each other." I imagine that every time the guards had to read these notes, they were hit by a wave of dry heaving, followed by existential horror. Damon and Sonia may have been imprisoned, but the guards were the ones who could not escape, exposed to a love so nauseating no cell bars could contain it. It is reasonable to believe that Sonia was the motivating force behind this horrifying relationship. She manipulated Damon and kept complete control over him. Sonia realized that people would view the relationship with disgust, but she felt justified in her behavior. Sometimes Damon and Sonia did not really hide the relationship. However, at other times, they seemed embarrassed. Damon actively pursued outside lovers, perhaps as a way of convincing himself that whatever he was doing with his mother was not the central focus of his romantic efforts. It's also possible that Sonia encouraged him to find lovers for reproductive purposes. The purpose of Damon marrying Nikki could have been to have children for Sonia. When Nikki left Damon, this threatened the custody situation. Therefore, Nikki was murdered. Sonia took out a life insurance policy on Nikki, which added a financial incentive into the mix. The plan that Damon and Sonia came up with was not clever. After stealing the gun from Damon's brother, they met Nikki at the convenience store. Damon pretended that Nikki hurt his hand, which Damon believed would help him establish an alibi. The plan was to chase Nikki down, shoot and kill her quickly, then drive to the sheriff's office and report the hand injury. Damon and Sonia made several mistakes. They had the boys in the vehicle during the murder. Again, they were in the back seat. They did not successfully create an alibi. They had enough time to make it to the sheriff's office after killing Nikki. And later, Sonia revealed the location of gun parts, magazines, and ammunition to another inmate in jail. Apparently, Sonia wasn't too worried about being arrested because she had a long-term plan to escape the authorities and remain free. She and her son could find safety in the state of Oregon. Sonia believed that Oregon would not extradite them to Georgia. This is a pretty good indicator of Sonia's level of sophistication. I can picture her looking up non-extradition countries and finding nations like Nicaragua, Venezuela, Vietnam, Indonesia, and Cuba. She then thinks to herself, I bet that Oregon, a U.S. state, would not extradite either. Her plan to escape extradition did not even involve leaving the United States. She was going to use an international fugitive strategy that did not involve the international part. This is like somebody thinking they can disappear by standing behind a lamp. Sonia was far from being a master criminal. In the end, Damon and Sonia sealed their own fates. They will undoubtedly suffer for the rest of their lives, not due to the confinement aspect of prison, rather because they are being kept apart. They must now find other ways to obtain servicing. Those are my thoughts on the case of Nikki Bamberg. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you soon.